Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders just led the way on another important issue, and they won. So they've been racking up W's, man. I mean, as a direct result of Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders, 350,000 Amazon workers now get a living wage. Also, the same thing happened with Disney. They're applying pressure on Walmart for the same purpose. And now we have a situation where they may be saving the lives of children. So take a look. Senate votes 63-37 to advance a bill that would end the U.S. involvement in the Saudi Arabia-backed war in Yemen. Setting up additional votes next week, same resolution failed on the Senate floor in March with support from only 44 senators. So Jamal Khashoggi may have had something to do with this, where that was such a big story and so many politicians realized just how bad the Saudi regime is, that they're uncontrollable and they have no morals or ethics, that they went, oh, yeah, that's a little too far even for us because you just killed somebody who's part of the elite class. I'm sure that had something to do with it. But the other thing that had something to do with it is Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna in the House and Mike Lee, who's a Republican, and Chris Murphy, who decided, oh, this is not okay, and we're going to build an alliance on this. And also, what do I always tell you guys about changing people's minds? You have to frame it from their ideology, from their perspective. So when you're talking to a Republican, one of the arguments you can make is, hey, we're waging offensive wars against countries that didn't attack us and it's costing billions of dollars. Maybe we should stop that. And then they go, you know what? I don't like big government. That sounds like big government. The argument that appealed to Mike Lee was, hey, this is an unconstitutional war. Nobody approved this. Congress, under the Constitution, Congress has to approve war. They didn't approve it. So Mike Lee looked at that and said, I'm for the Constitution, so I'm going to go ahead and say we have to have a vote on this, or else we're abdicating our constitutional responsibility. So that's the argument that appealed to him. Now, for all the Democrats, what appealed to them was seeing pictures of starving babies who are dying and people with cholera and how the country is being starved and blown up and, we're aiding and abetting a genocide. So they won, man. They just lost on this recently, and now they won. Now, I want to play a little clip here because rarely do we see bipartisan action in Washington, D.C. that's positive. Usually whenever we see bipartisan stuff, it's negative. It's agreeing, to let Wall Street fuck us and to crash the economy. Well, now, a rare instance of a bipartisan measure that's overwhelmingly positive. Let's see Bernie and Mike Lee talk about it.
Why is it that you have mounted a joint push to try and pass the resolution that will take the U.S. out of the Saudi-led war in Yemen? Senator Sanders.
Well, I think for a couple of reasons. Number one, it is a horrific humanitarian disaster, the worst taking place in the world today. We're talking about 85,000 children who have already died and millions more who may succumb to starvation if we do not end this horrific war. Second of all, I think the American people are catching on to the nature of the despotic regime in Saudi Arabia, which is leading this effort. And we should not be part of their military adventurism, in my view. And the third point, one that Senator Lee has been talking about for a long time, is the simple constitutionality of the issue. And that is, the Congress is pretty clear. The Constitution is very clear. It is the Congress that has war-making powers, not the President of the United States. This war is unauthorized and, in my view, unconstitutional.
Senator Lee.
I'm feeling the burn. I completely agree with what he's saying. It's important to remember one of the distinguishing characteristics about our chief executive in our system is that, unlike the King of England, our president doesn't have the power unilaterally to go to war. It's one of the points that James Madison made in Federalist 69. It's one of the reasons this was set up this way. In order for us to put American blood on the line by committing us to an act of war, you have to have the branch of government most accountable to the people at the most regular intervals. Congress act. That hasn't happened here, and it's wrong to continue a war until that's happened.
Now, this is not over yet. They still have to do, I think, 2 more rounds of voting on it for final passage. But 63-37, dog. Every single Democrat voted for it, including Manchin and Jones. which is like, whoa, how the fuck did you make that happen? Because they're like half the time. In Manchin's case, a little over half the time, he votes with the Republicans. So, but then again, many Republicans obviously cross the aisle here. Mike Lee's one example. Of course, Rand Paul's another example. But I want to go ahead and show you who the no votes were. Somebody on Twitter called this the Senate Genocide Caucus. That's totally true. Take a look. Barrasso, Blunt, Boozman, Burr, Capito, Cornyn, Cotton, Tom Cotton. He's one of the worst of the worst. Crapo, name speaks for itself. Cruz, Ted Cruz, pro-genocide. Enzi, Ernst, Fisher, Gardner, Chuck Grassley, Hatch, Heller, Hovind, Hyde-Smith, Jim Inhofe, Isaacson, Johnson, Kennedy, Kyle, no connection to me, Langford, McConnell, of course, Mitch McConnell, who hasn't had a soul since 1972. By the way, that's a random year. It's not like he had a soul before then. Perdue, Rich, Roberts, Rounds, Rubio, Marco Rubio, pro-genocide, little pro-genocide Marco, Ben Sass. Ben Sass, he's been going around acting like I'm a Republican who's respectable, and I take a stand against Donald Trump because I don't like his mean traits. But apparently he's pro-genocide. Mr. I care about civility in Washington, D.C. is literally pro-genocide. Then you have Scott, Shelby, Sullivan, Thune, Tillis, and Wicker. So yeah, every single vote in favor of this genocide was a Republican vote. Every single Democrat voted against it, and I'd say of the Republicans, it was generally the more libertarian-leaning Republicans who voted against this genocide. So, man, Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders. It's so funny because the argument always has been from centrists, like, no, stop it. We're the only ones who can get anything done because we're reasonable centrists. In reality, that just means we're corporatist neoliberals who do whatever our donors want. But we're centrists, so we're by definition better at getting stuff done. Meanwhile, Bernie and Ro Khanna have been racking up W's under Republican control of D.C. How? How do you do that? Because they're fighters. They're fighters. $15 minimum wage for Amazon workers. You know? Literally stopping the U.S. from aiding a genocide. They got that through the Senate. Now, again, more rounds of voting to come, but still, 63-37. Why? Because they're fighters, they believe in something, and this was an issue where you can appeal to the ideology of some people who you would otherwise disagree with. Hey, I thought you guys loved the Constitution. You love the Constitution? Okay, you do love the Constitution. Then we got to follow the Constitution, right? Well, we're not with this war in Yemen, and we're aiding a genocide. Maybe we should stop it. No milquetoast centrist would lead the charge on this. But Bernie Sanders did, Ro Khanna did, and look at where we're at, man. It's amazing. So, sometimes when you just try and you fight, the good guys can win, and we have to remember that going forward.